The Meridian Grand Hotel lobby glittered with false promises. Crystal chandeliers cast prismatic light across marble floors, creating an atmosphere of luxury and escape. For some, it was a temporary haven of room service and fresh linens. For me, it was the scene of an execution I'd orchestrated myself. I checked my watch, 6:42 p.m. My in-laws would arrive any minute. I adjusted my position on the velvet sofa, smoothing the navy dress I'd deliberately chosen, the one David had complimented at our anniversary dinner just 3 months ago. My hands trembled slightly, but I tucked them into my lap, determined to maintain the composure I'd rehearsed in my bathroom mirror for days. A concierge approached. "Mrs. Mercer, can I get you anything while you wait?" "No, thank you." My voice sounded steadier than I felt. "My party will be here shortly." Across the lobby, a girl about 12 years old sat hunched over a tablet, occasionally glancing up at her younger brother, who was building something elaborate with small toys on the coffee table. The boy couldn't have been more than 8. They were well-behaved, clearly accustomed to waiting in nice places. My throat tightened. Somebody else's children. His other family. The hotel's revolving doors spun, and I recognized the rigid posture of my father-in-law immediately. Gerald Mercer, retired Army colonel, walked with the same military bearing he'd maintained for 40 years. Beside him, Evelyn Mercer clutched her designer handbag, her concerned eyes scanning the lobby until they found me. "Olivia?" Evelyn rushed forward while Gerald followed at a measured pace. "What's going on?" "Your message sounded urgent." I rose to greet them, accepting Evelyn's embrace. The familiar scent of her Chanel perfume, the same one she'd worn at my wedding, momentarily unbalanced me. "Thank you both for coming." I gestured to the seating area. "Please, sit down." Gerald remained standing. "I'd prefer you tell us what this is about first. Is David all right?" A bitter laugh nearly escaped, but I swallowed it down. "Physically, he's fine. He'll be here soon." I looked directly into my father-in-law's eyes. "He doesn't know you're here." Gerald's expression hardened. "I don't appreciate being manipulated, Olivia. Please, just sit. I promise everything will be clear in a few minutes." Evelyn touched her husband's arm. "Let's hear what she has to say, Gerald." They sat across from me, the coffee table between us like a demilitarized zone. Evelyn's hands fidgeted with her wedding ring, a nervous habit I'd noticed years ago. "Are those David's clients?" Evelyn asked, nodding toward the children. I felt my carefully constructed composure crack slightly. "No, not clients." Gerald's eyes narrowed, his tactical mind already assembling the pieces. Before he could speak, the girl across the lobby stood up suddenly, waving enthusiastically toward the entrance. "Uncle David!" she called out. All 3 of us turned. David stood frozen in the revolving door, 1 foot in and 1 foot out, a woman with a sleek brunette bob by his side. The blood drained from his face as our eyes met across the lobby. Time suspended itself for 3 heartbeats. The children ran to him, oblivious to the catastrophe unfolding. The boy grabbed his hand, pulling him toward the elevators, chattering about the room service menu. David remained paralyzed, his eyes darting between me and his parents. The woman, Amanda Hayes, according to the private investigator's report, sensed the wrongness immediately. Her hand flew to David's arm, her head turning to follow his gaze. I stood, my legs surprisingly steady beneath me. "David," I called, my voice carrying across the polished expanse. "I believe you have some introductions to make." 13 years earlier, I'd fallen in love with David Mercer's hands. Strong, confident hands that designed award-winning buildings and traced the curve of my spine with reverent attention. We'd met at a charity gala where he was receiving an award for his architectural work on a children's hospital. I was there representing my firm, more interested in the open bar than networking, until I'd literally bumped into him, spilling champagne down the front of his tuxedo. "I'm so sorry," I'd gasped. Mortified. He'd just laughed, dabbing at the stain with a napkin. "Don't worry. This gives me an excuse to leave early." Then, with a conspiratorial wink, "Want to escape with me?" We'd ended up at an all-night diner, him in his champagne-stained tuxedo, me in my cocktail dress, sharing French fries and life stories until dawn. By our third date, I was already imagining our future together. By our 10th, he was sketching plans for the house he wanted to build for us. "Here's where we'll have breakfast," he'd say, pointing to a sun-drenched nook in the blueprints. "And this space will be perfect for a nursery someday." We were married within a year, moving into a downtown apartment while David's dream house for us was under construction. Evelyn and Gerald welcomed me warmly, if somewhat formally, into the Mercer family. Life seemed to unfold according to a perfect plan. The first 3 years were blissful. We moved into our custom-built home, traveled extensively, and built a life that looked enviable from the outside. The only shadow was our difficulty conceiving a child. After 2 years of trying, followed by fertility treatments and one devastating miscarriage, we'd agreed to take a break. "It'll happen when it's meant to," David had assured me, holding me close as I cried into his chest. "And if it doesn't, we have each other. That's enough for me." Those words had comforted me then. Now they echoed with hollow mockery. The first signs appeared so gradually I almost missed them. David's firm took on projects in neighboring states, requiring occasional overnight stays. One night became 2. 2 became 3. His texts during these trips grew shorter, less frequent. "The reception is terrible here," he'd explain. Or, "Back-to-back meetings all day, completely exhausted." I believed him because I wanted to, because the alternative was unthinkable. Then came the late-night showers immediately upon returning home. The mysterious calls he'd take outside on the patio. The growing emotional distance that I desperately tried to bridge. "Is everything okay between us?" I'd asked one night as we lay in bed, not touching. "Just stressed about work," he'd replied, rolling over to kiss my forehead perfunctorily. Major project deadline coming up. I'd nodded and pretended to believe him, even as something inside me whispered, "He's lying." On our 10th anniversary, David surprised me with a diamond bracelet and reservations at the city's most exclusive restaurant. Halfway through dinner, his phone buzzed. He glanced at it, excused himself, and spent 15 minutes outside the restaurant. When he returned, his expression was carefully neutral, but something had shifted. "Everything okay?" I asked. "Client emergency," he said smoothly. "Nothing that can't wait until tomorrow." That night, he made love to me with unusual intensity. Afterward, as he slept beside me, I did something I'd never done before. I checked his phone. There it was. A text message from Amanda Hayes, Miller Project, that read, "The kids are finally asleep. Missing you desperately. Tomorrow can't come soon enough." The ground shifted beneath me. I put the phone back exactly as I'd found it and lay awake until morning, my mind spinning through possibilities, searching for innocent explanations. Maybe she was a colleague working late on the Miller Project. Maybe the kids referred to younger team members. Maybe. But the seed of doubt had been planted, and it grew rapidly. I began keeping track of his trips, comparing them to his firm's project schedule, which I could access through their public website. Inconsistencies emerged. He claimed to be in Cincinnati when his firm had no projects there. He mentioned client meetings on days when I knew his calendar should have been clear. I hired a private investigator without telling my best friend Natalie, without telling anyone. It felt like a betrayal, an admission that my marriage was already broken. But I needed to know. 3 weeks later, the investigator sent me a file. Inside were photographs of David entering an upscale apartment building in Portland, a city he'd claimed to have never worked in. There were receipts from restaurants, movie tickets, and most damning of all, school pickup authorization forms listing David Mercer as an approved guardian for Emma and Liam Hayes. The children from those forms were the same ones now running across the Meridian Grand Hotel lobby, calling my husband Uncle David. David's face transformed from shock to anger as he crossed the lobby, leaving Amanda and the children by the elevators. His stride was purposeful, shoulders squared, the posture he adopted when heading into difficult client meetings. "What are you doing here?" he hissed when he reached us, deliberately positioning his back to Amanda and the children. Gerald stood, his imposing height forcing David to look up at his father. "I think that's our question to you, son." "Mom, Dad, David's voice faltered. He ran a hand through his hair, a nervous gesture I'd always found endearing. Now it just looked calculated. This isn't what it looks like. I finished for him, my voice steady despite the hurricane raging inside me. Then what is it exactly, David? Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you've been living a double life. Olivia, please. His voice dropped to an urgent whisper. Not here. We can talk about this at home. Home? I repeated. Which one? The one you built for us, or the one you've been visiting in Portland? Color drained from his face. Evelyn gasped softly beside me. David, what is she talking about? She asked. Before he could answer, Amanda approached cautiously, the children trailing behind her. Up close, she was even more beautiful than in the photos. Elegant cheekbones, intelligent eyes currently wide with confusion. David? Her voice was low, controlled. What's going on? The boy, Liam according to the files, tugged at David's sleeve. Are we still going to the aquarium tomorrow, Uncle David? You promised. Something inside me shattered. Not just the confirmation of David's betrayal, but the realization that these innocent children had been dragged into our tragedy. They looked up at the man I'd married with such genuine affection. Liam, Emma, why don't you go sit over there for a minute? Amanda pointed to where they'd been waiting earlier. Grown-up talk. Emma, old enough to sense the tension, gave me a curious look before leading her brother away. David turned to Amanda, desperation etching lines around his mouth. Amanda, this is complicated. Complicated. Gerald's voice cut through the tension like a knife. Is that what we're calling adultery these days? Amanda's eyes widened, darting between all of us before settling on me. Understanding dawned on her face, followed swiftly by horror. You're not his sister. Her words weren't a question. No, I said gently, feeling a sudden, surprising kinship with this woman. I'm his wife. Olivia Mercer. Amanda took a physical step back as if I'd struck her. Wife? But you... She turned to David, voice rising. You told me you were divorced. For years you said you were divorced. David's face contorted with panic as he looked between us. Amanda, please keep your voice down. Keep my voice down? She laughed, a harsh, brittle sound. You've been lying to me for 4 years and you're worried about the noise level? Hotel guests were beginning to stare. A security guard shifted his position, watching our group with professional concern. Perhaps we should move this conversation somewhere more private, Evelyn suggested, her social graces prevailing even in crisis. No, I said firmly. I spent 3 years being lied to in private. I think we've all had enough secrets. David's jaw tightened. This is incredibly immature, Olivia. You had no right to ambush me like this. And you had no right to betray our marriage vows, Gerald interjected, his military bearing making the statement sound like a court-martial verdict. Wait, Amanda said, her voice suddenly small. 3 years? You've been married this whole time? David closed his eyes briefly, his shoulders slumping in defeat. When he spoke, his voice had changed, colder, defensive. This isn't how I wanted any of you to find out, he said. But yes, I've been seeing Amanda for 4 years. I was going to tell you, Olivia. I just couldn't find the right time. 4 years, I repeated, the full weight of his deception crushing me anew. 4 years of lies. 4 years of me waiting up for you, planning our future, grieving our lost baby alone while you were building a life with someone else. Amanda's face paled. Baby? What baby? It doesn't matter now, David said dismissively. It matters to me, I said, my voice breaking for the first time. Evelyn reached for my hand, squeezing it gently. The simple gesture of solidarity nearly undid me. Mom? Dad? David turned to his parents, his expression pleading. I never meant to hurt anyone. These things, they're complicated. You can't just reduce everything to right and wrong, Gerald's face hardened. That's where you're wrong, son. Some things are exactly that simple. Uncle David? Emma had approached unnoticed, her young face creased with worry. Why is everyone so mad? Who is this lady? 5 pairs of adult eyes turned to the child, the innocent casualty of our disaster. No one spoke for a long moment. I made a decision then, one that would define who I wanted to be moving forward. I knelt to the girl's eye level. "Hi, Emma. I'm Olivia. I knew your Uncle David a long time ago." Her eyes, so similar to David's, studied me with childlike directness. "Are you his friend too?" The question hung in the air, loaded with unintended significance. "I was," I said softly. "But sometimes grown-ups stop being friends. It's complicated." "Like when Jasmine and I had a fight about the science project?" she asked seriously. Despite everything, I felt my lips curve into a genuine smile. "A little bit like that, yes," Emma nodded, seeming satisfied with this explanation. "Grown-ups are weird," she pronounced before returning to her brother. As I stood, I caught Amanda watching me, a complex mix of emotions on her face: anger, confusion, and something that might have been grudging respect. "Well," I said, turning back to David, "I think we've all seen enough. I'll be staying with Natalie tonight. You can collect your essential things tomorrow while I'm at work. My lawyer will contact you next week." "Olivia," David started, but I cut him off. "I don't want to hear it, David. Not now. Maybe not ever." I turned to Amanda. "I'm truly sorry you and your children were caught in this. You deserved better." She nodded once, her expression unreadable. I turned to my in-laws, soon-to-be former in-laws. "Gerald, Evelyn, thank you for coming. I'm sorry it had to be under these circumstances." Evelyn stood, pulling me into a fierce hug. "This changes nothing between us," she whispered. "You're still family." I hadn't expected those words, hadn't realized how desperately I needed to hear them until that moment. Tears threatened, but I blinked them back. Gerald placed a heavy hand on David's shoulder. "Your mother and I will be having a long conversation with you, son. A very long conversation." As I walked toward the exit, I heard Amanda's voice behind me. "The children and I will be in the car. Take your time explaining to your actual family why you won't be joining us this weekend." Her words were ice-edged with controlled fury. The revolving door spun me out into the evening air. For the first time in months, I took a full, deep breath. The future stretched before me, uncertain, terrifying, but undeniably mine. The divorce proceedings were mercifully straightforward, if emotionally devastating. David didn't contest anything, perhaps out of guilt, perhaps simply eager to move on. Our house, the one he'd designed with spaces for children who never arrived, sold quickly, providing me with enough financial cushion to start over. Natalie insisted I stay with her until I found a new place. "As long as it takes," she said fiercely, helping me pack the remnants of my married life into carefully labeled boxes. "Though fair warning, I will start charging rent if you criticize my coffee again." I managed a laugh, a small, rusty sound, but genuine. 3 weeks after the hotel confrontation, I received a text from an unknown number. "This is Amanda. Can we meet?" We chose neutral territory, a coffee shop downtown, far from both our regular haunts. She arrived precisely on time, dressed in a sleek pantsuit that made me feel underdressed in my jeans and sweater. "Thank you for coming," she said, sliding into the chair across from me. "I wasn't sure I would," I admitted. She nodded, understanding. "I wouldn't have either in your position." The barista delivered our orders, black coffee for her, chai latte for me. We sipped in awkward silence until she finally spoke. "I didn't know about you," she said, her eyes meeting mine directly. "I need you to believe that." "I do," I replied, surprising myself with the truth of it. "The investigator's report made that clear." "David told you he was divorced." She winced at the mention of the investigator but nodded. 4 years ago, I met a charming architect at my company's product launch. He said he was divorced, co-parenting amicably with his ex-wife. By the time I might have had doubts, the kids were already attached to him. The familiar ache returned at the mention of children, but it was duller now, less consuming. "Why did you want to meet?" I asked. Amanda set her cup down carefully. "Closure, I suppose, and—" She hesitated. "I thought you should know that it's over between David and me." This surprised me. "Because of the lying?" "Partly." Her fingers traced the rim of her cup. "But mostly because I realized I deserved better than being someone's second choice. someone's secret, and so did my children. I felt an unexpected surge of respect for this woman who'd unknowingly shared my husband for years. Are they okay? The children? I asked. A sad smile crossed her face. Kids are resilient? Emma asks questions sometimes. Liam just knows that Uncle David doesn't come around anymore. She paused. I told them the truth, in an age-appropriate way. That adults sometimes make mistakes, and that lying is always wrong. No matter the reason. That's brave, I said softly. Necessary, she corrected. We finished our coffees in a silence that had somehow shifted from awkward to contemplative. As we stood to leave, Amanda hesitated. He didn't deserve either of us, you know. I nodded, feeling the truth of her words settle into my bones. No, he didn't. We parted without promises to stay in touch. Some connections, however unique, aren't meant to last. A month later, I signed a lease on a small but bright apartment across town, one with large windows and a tiny balcony perfect for the herb garden I'd always wanted but never made time for. I painted the walls the deep teal color David had always vetoed, hung art that spoke to me rather than matched the furniture, and slowly began reconstructing a life that was wholly mine. The first time I ran into Gerald and Evelyn was at a charity gala, ironically similar to the one where I'd met their son. I nearly turned around when I spotted them across the room, but Evelyn caught my eye and waved me over with such genuine warmth that I couldn't refuse. Olivia, darling, you look wonderful, she said, embracing me as if nothing had changed. Gerald, more reserved but equally warm, took my hand in both of his. It's good to see you. You too, I said, meaning it despite the complexity of emotions their presence stirred. I wasn't sure if we'd still want to see you. Evelyn finished. Don't be ridiculous. We've always thought of you as a daughter, not just a daughter-in-law. David made his choices, Gerald added, his moral clarity unchanged. We've made ours. Later, over drinks, Evelyn confided that David had moved to Seattle, ostensibly for work, but likely to escape the consequences of his actions. He's still our son, she said, but what he did was inexcusable. Have you met her? I couldn't help asking. Amanda? Evelyn shook her head. No, David tried to introduce us once, but we declined. Perhaps that was unfair to her, but... She trailed off. Unsure. It's complicated, I finished, echoing words that had taken on new meaning. 6 months after the hotel confrontation, I received a job offer from a competing firm in Chicago. Better title, better salary, clean slate. I accepted without hesitation. My last night in town, I returned to the Meridian Grand Hotel. I wasn't entirely sure why, some need for symmetry perhaps, or to reclaim a space that had been the setting for such personal devastation. I sat in the same lobby, ordered a glass of wine, and watched people come and go. Business travelers, couples on romantic getaways, families with tired children, lives intersecting briefly before continuing on their separate paths. Is this seat taken? A deep voice asked. I looked up to find a man about my age, travel bag slung over his shoulder. Kind eyes crinkled in a questioning smile. It's all yours, I replied, gesturing to the empty chair. Thanks. Been waiting for my room to be ready for almost an hour. He settled into the chair with a sigh. I'm Marcus, by the way. Olivia, I offered, not yet ready to share more. Nice to meet you, Olivia. He raised his own glass in a small salute. Are you staying here or just enjoying the ambiance? I considered the question, thinking of all that had transpired within these walls, how a single day had simultaneously ended one chapter of my life and begun another. Just passing through, I said finally, raising my glass to meet his, on my way to somewhere new. 1 year to the day after the hotel confrontation, I stood in a Chicago courtroom, right hand raised. Do you swear to tell the truth? The whole truth, and nothing but the truth? The bailiff intoned. I do, I answered clearly. I took the witness stand, adjusting the lapel of my suit jacket. Navy blue, like the dress I'd worn that day. A deliberate choice. The prosecuting attorney approached. Ms. Mercer, please state your occupation for the record. I'm a forensic accountant with Thornton Blackwell. And can you explain to the jury your role in uncovering the financial fraud at Cortec Industries? I nodded, leaning slightly toward the microphone. My team was hired to audit Cortec's financial statements following irregularities reported by a whistleblower. During our investigation, we discovered a sophisticated embezzlement scheme that had been operating for approximately 4 years. The attorney nodded encouragingly. And what made you particularly qualified to detect this scheme when previous auditors had missed it? I paused, considering my answer carefully. The jury watched intently, 12 strangers whose lives had temporarily intersected with mine, waiting to hear what I would say. Sometimes, I said finally, when you've personally experienced deception, you develop a certain sensitivity to inconsistencies. You notice the small details that don't align with the larger narrative, the business trips that don't match company records, the transactions that occur at suspicious intervals, the stories that seem plausible on the surface but fall apart under scrutiny. My eyes drifted briefly to the defense table, where Cortec's former CFO sat, his expression carefully neutral. He'd hidden his crimes behind a facade of respectability for years, much like David had concealed his betrayal. In both personal and professional contexts, I continued, truth tends to be consistent. Lies require constant maintenance. My job is simply to look for the places where that maintenance has failed, the attorney smiled, satisfied with my answer. Thank you, Ms. Mercer. No further questions. As I stepped down from the witness stand, I caught a glimpse of myself reflected in the courtroom's glass door, shoulders back, head high, moving purposefully forward. Not just surviving, but thriving. Outside the courthouse, spring sunshine warmed my face as I checked my phone. 3 new messages. One from Natalie asking about my testimony, one from my new Chicago book club confirming tomorrow's meeting, and one from Marcus suggesting dinner at his place to celebrate the conclusion of the trial. 6 months into our relationship, Marcus still opened doors for me, not out of outdated chivalry but simple thoughtfulness. He listened when I spoke and actually heard me. He understood why I sometimes needed space, why trust came gradually for me now. Most importantly, he had his own full life and didn't expect me to be the sun around which he orbited. I texted quick replies to all 3 messages, then scrolled to find another number, one I rarely used but had never deleted, testified in court today. Thought of you. Hope you and the kids are well. Olivia Amanda's reply came surprisingly quickly. Emma made honor roll. Liam lost 2 teeth. I got promoted. We're good. Thank you for checking in. A simple exchange between 2 women whose lives had collided in spectacular fashion before continuing on separate trajectories. Not friends exactly, but connected by shared experience, witnesses to each other's resilience. I slipped my phone back into my pocket and headed toward the L station. Chicago's skyline stretched before me, familiar now after a year of rebuilding my life among its towers and neighborhoods. The truth was, I no longer thought of myself as broken or betrayed. Those words belonged to the woman who had sat waiting in a hotel lobby, steeling herself for confrontation. They didn't fit the person I'd become, someone stronger, more compassionate, more authentically herself. That evening, as Marcus and I shared a homemade dinner on his balcony overlooking the lake, he asked about the trial. How did it feel? He wondered. Being the one to bring everything to light? I considered the question, watching the sunset paint the water in shades of orange and gold. Like standing in my own truth, I said finally. Uncomfortable at times, but necessary, he nodded. Understanding without needing further explanation. One of the many things I'd grown to appreciate about him. Later, as we cleared the dishes together, moving around his kitchen with the easy choreography we'd developed, he suddenly stopped, taking my hand in his. I have something I want to ask you, he said. His expression serious. My heart skipped, not from fear this time, but possibility. I'm listening, I said, and found that I truly was, open to whatever came next, ready to move forward. No longer defined by what I'd lost, but by what I'd found. Myself, standing tall in the light of truth.
And that wraps up today's story. Now we want to hear from you. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments, and let's see how far these stories reach. If this story moved you or gave you chills, give it a like, share, and subscribe for more powerful stories. One last thing, rate the story from 1 to 10 in the comments. Your feedback helps us bring you even better ones next time. Thanks for watching. We appreciate you being part of this storytelling journey.